Welcome to the Addicted Mind Plus, the podcast where recovery, mental health, and wellness take the front seat. I'm Duane Osterlind, and joining me is my co-host, Eric Osterlind, known for his insightful work on the Stuck Brain podcast. In each episode, we'll dive into actionable, small steps to help those in recovery journey further along the path to wellness. Our conversations are designed to be concise, typically around 15 minutes, though we may occasionally delve deeper when the topic demands it. Our goal, to provide you with practical advice grounded in real experiences and expert insights to empower your recovery journey. So whether you're on a break, on a walk, or just taking a moment for yourself, join us as we explore the many facets of recovery and mental health, one small step at a time. This is the Addicted Mind Plus, where your journey to wellness gets an extra boost. So let's get started. All right, everyone, welcome to the Addicted Mind Plus. Today, we're going to talk about an important topic that really has to do a lot with recovery, and that's dealing with grief. And we're going to talk about that through the lens of Elizabeth Kübler-Ross's On Death and Dying, the 5 Stages of Grief, and how we can apply that to recovery and getting better and moving through the process of recovery and the grief that comes with it.
Yeah, and most people don't realize that there is a sense of grief that we feel when we give up a substance, either alcohol or some other addiction. And there's a grief mourning almost of giving up that activity and that usage. So it's important to kind of go through this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that and sometimes don't recognize that they're in grief about this process because, especially with addiction, it's brought so much hurt and heartache. It almost goes like, how could I be grieving this? But the reality is when we lose something, whatever it is, even if it's not good for us, we go through a process of grief and loss. And it's being able to recognize that and move through that. So we're going to talk about the 5 stages of grief and how they apply to recovery and addiction. And let's just list out the 5 stages right now. So the first stage is denial. The second stage is anger. Third stage, bargaining. Fourth is depression. And the 5th stage is finally acceptance. And what I've seen over and over again with recovery, and in my own life too, dealing with loss and grief, is that these are the stages we go through and we've got to walk through them. And the more we allow ourselves to walk through those 5 stages, the quicker we get to acceptance, and it allows us to move past all of that, all the hardship of that.
Yeah. And usually what I see is people, they have that counterintuitive feeling like I'm giving up something bad. I should be happy. And they're not, and they have to, and then they feel guilty that they're not happy that they're giving up this substance. Like, oh, something must be wrong with me, that kind of feeling. And it's no, you're actually losing something. You're losing a part of your life, and you need to grieve that identity that you were attached to. Whatever it is that you feel like you're losing, you need to grieve it and go through these 5 stages of grief.
Yeah, I think it's just something you have to almost accept that you have to go through these 5 stages to be able to go through them. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's the process that we start to see. And if we allow it to take place, I think we move through grief faster. Although grief is an emotion, is a process that comes and goes. It's not just all at one time and we feel grief and we're done. Grief usually revisits us as we move through this process. But the more we recognize that, the easier it is to move through that process. So if you're out there and you're doing this and you're struggling in recovery, maybe take a look at this, dig a little bit deeper into this and really think about what we're going to talk about, because you might find that this is an area that's keeping you stuck from moving through your recovery. So let's start with the first one, which is denial. And this is where we refuse to acknowledge or accept the extent of our addiction and the harm it has caused to ourselves and others because we don't want to let go. We actually don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
We don't want to see it gone from our lives. It's the only way we know how to operate or function. It may be the only place in a way that we're experiencing joy at this time. if you want to call it joy, the high, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's some positive feeling that we're getting that keeps us stuck.
Yeah. It's either attached to your identity and you don't want to give up that identity because that means something to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, it could be around avoidance techniques, that substance was causing you to avoid the hard feelings. So you're kind of in denial about that. It could be a
Yeah.
lot of those situations.
And then after denial, after we want to just keep pushing it away, but maybe we've moved through that phase, we get to anger. And that's where we have to confront the reality of our addiction. And what I see a lot when people are in this stage is there's a lot of anger towards themselves where they really beat themselves up. They're angry at the loss. Like, it isn't fair. The world isn't fair. It isn't fair that this has happened to me. Or angry at yourself too. How could I be such a horrible person? And you just want to beat yourself up as you go through this phase. And it can be really brutal.
It can be. And then we move into the bargaining phase, which is more, the individuals are trying to deal, they're trying to compromise with attempts to control their addiction. So you'll have phrases like this: I only drink on weekends, I'll stop using if I can get my job. Those bargaining techniques. So if you're noticing that kind of internal speech or those statements that you're saying, then you might be in that bargaining part of grief.
Yeah, I see this a lot too, where it's the person's like, well, this part of it isn't that bad, especially when I look at behavioral addictions. This piece of the behavior is okay. I can have this piece, but I can't have that piece. Or they make all these deals with themselves. Like, this is the last time. Today is the last time. This is it. I'm done after this. They've made that bargain. They're not ready to really let it go and mourn that loss. It's like, well, I can still have a little bit of it. And I think it makes a lot of sense too, because when we look at addiction is about pain and hurt and suffering and trauma and shame. And addiction is the place that you can go that allows you to have a moment of respite from that. So I think the bargaining stage often lasts a lot longer for a lot of people until the consequences are really there. And they might slip back into that anger and denial piece. Like, this isn't linear in a way. We kind of move back and forth through these phases. But a lot of times bargaining is the place I see a lot of people sit for a long time, trying to really see if they can have it and not have it.
Yeah.
If they can get around the consequences of it, manage it, and really, after a while, they begin to realize that's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah.
They're going to have to let it go.
And that makes sense that the next stage after that is depression. Because if you're beating yourself up and you're trying to bargain and trying to get through the situation, there's going to be an immense amount of depression at some point that pops in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's a sadness once you realize what it is that you loved in a way, even if it's bad for you, even if even it harms you, there's this sadness to realize this is gone.
Yeah. I've ruined my own life. There's no way out.
Yeah.
Those type of thought patterns and behaviors start to pop up.
And also, oftentimes, addiction is part of a person's identity.
Yeah.
I mean, for a person who is in recovery, they're going to lose friends.
Yeah.
Probably, because if they want to stay sober, they might not be able to hang out with certain people. You might not be able to do that. You might have to say, you know what? I'm going to have to let that go. And that becomes sad. Or my life is never going to be fun anymore. For a lot of people, alcohol is the way in which they socialize and they connect.
Yeah.
So that's a loss.
Yeah. Or their identity could be, I was the fun guy that was doing crazy things at parties. And now that part of me is gone because I'm not drinking or using substances. So you have to grieve that loss of that part of you. What am I going to look like now? What am I going to do to other people?
Yeah. And this is all different kinds of addictions, right? That I don't get to do that anymore.
Yeah.
There's loss in that. And even though that sounds minor when we talk about that piece, there's still a grief to that, however subtle that is.
Which then leads us into our fifth stage, which is acceptance.
Yeah, this is the stage where we can finally acknowledge it all. We can sit with reality. It is really a proactive step towards recovery. But once again, we have to feel all the other stuff before it to get to this. And I think it's about when I look at acceptance of grief and loss, I think there's an acceptance that this is gone for me. This part of me is gone, and I have to be sad about it, even if I know it's for the best. Even though I know on some level that this is a horrible thing for me, that this is bad, that this only brings hardship, it's being with it, that's actually gone. It's actually gone. It will not return to my life no matter what. And I think we have to recognize that grief comes in a lot of different ways. Like sometimes grief in our life shows up not for anything that we've done, right? We just have a loss, right? We have to recognize that. And sometimes grief comes with choices we have to make. And I think recovery is a choice that we have to make. And with that means we're going to go through all of these stages to get to the other side. I think some people mistake acceptance as this place where you have all this happiness and joy and it's all over and you're to the other side. But what I found with acceptance is there's a deeper appreciation for the things we have presently, good things in our life that are here now. We have a deeper appreciation for them because we have lost in our life. We have lost things. And so there's this deeper sense of joy that is also with the grief, if that makes sense. And I think that is a fuller place to be in a way because joy and happiness has this deeper meaning when we've gone through these 5 stages of grief, if we allow ourselves to do that.
I completely agree. And then usually what we see when people are in that acceptance stage, that's when they're starting, therapy, support groups. They're really trying to change their identity or figure out what their new identity is about. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be happy and running through the streets with joy. It's more of like, okay, I've realized my life, my identity is changing and I want to support this new person that I'm becoming. So I'm going to work in therapy and support groups to kind of move the needle in that direction.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say about this is that we can look at these 5 stages and we can know them intellectually, but really we have to go through them experientially through our emotional process. A mentor of mine always said, recovery is an affair of the heart. We have to do this emotionally. We can understand it intellectually, but we got to walk through all of these phases and feel them fully.
I would agree. You can't think your way through an emotional problem. You have to feel your way through it.
Yeah. And that's hard
Yeah. It's difficult.
because these are painful emotions that we've got to walk through.
Yeah.
So, Eric, as we were talking, we were saying this is something that's universal to everybody. We all go through it. So we created a worksheet where you can explore each stage, look at it, ask questions about it, and see where you're at and what piece you need to go through in the future. It will help you move through this process to get to that piece of acceptance where you can move forward in your life. We think it'll be really helpful. And also, we want to invite you to join us at our deeper dive where we're going to talk more about this topic You can register for that at theaddictedmind.com/plus. Just click on the button there and show up, and we can talk and have a conversation about this and walk through this process together.
It's hard to get started. That's the hardest part, and that's where we're going to help you.
Yeah. And we need community about it because this is a universal thing that we all struggle with. If you're alive and you're moving through this life, this is a process you're going to go through. And I think we do it better together. So join us on the deep dive. Go to theaddictedmind.com/plus, register, and we'll see you there. And download the worksheet. The link will be in the show notes as well. So check that out.
See you at the deep dive.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.
See you in the next episode.
Thank you for tuning into The Addicted Mind Plus. We hope today's episode has brought you valuable insights and a small step to support your journey in recovery, mental health, and wellness. For more information about this episode and additional resources, please visit our website at theaddictedmind.com/plus. And if there's a topic you're eager to hear about or a question you'd like us to explore, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us at theaddictedmind.com and let us know your thoughts. Your journey is important, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, take care and keep stepping forward on your path to wellness.